Today is March 12th, 2026, and this is Read Through the Bible.
And we are reading the book of Ezra, and we left it off yesterday in chapter 4, and the very last verse of that chapter says, "Then the work on the house of the God that's in Jerusalem stopped, and it ceased until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia."
Right, and it had stopped because these people who were living in the land didn't like the fact that the temple was being rebuilt. So they sent a letter to King Artaxerxes and said, would you tell these people to stop?
Yep.
And he did.
And they forced him to stop. And now we're going to see another letter sent to Darius, who's then the new ruler. And he's going to say in chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 5 is a letter, and then chapter 6.
Right. Chapter 6, he's going to give them full support.
Yep.
Okay,
so you had micro summaries we talked about in chapters 1 through 4, and in chapter 5, your micro summaries are?
So I have resume and then letter.
Yeah, so the house is resuming, and then they sent a letter inquiring what should be done. Mm-hmm. And in chapter 6, we have?
We have support and then completed.
Yep, the support for the house that Darius gives, and then it's all completed.
Right.
And then it's dedicated, and then they celebrate the Passover, as to be expected. Okay, here we go.
Okay, chapter 5, verse 1. Now the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, the son of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews who were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. So we have Haggai and Zechariah in our Bibles. Mm-hmm. So we know what they said, at least some of what they said. And I think they are the reason why the Jews are going to start rebuilding.
Yep.
Verse 2. Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, arose and began to rebuild the house of God that is in Jerusalem. And the prophets of God were with them, supporting them. So I think it's kind of like, even though they had this decree from Artaxerxes to stop, some time had gone by, and now Darius was the ruler of Persia. And so I think they just decided to start up ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah, because forgiveness is easier to ask for than permission.
Right.
Okay, verse 3. At the same time, Tattenai, the governor of the province beyond the river, and Shethar-Bozenai and their associates came to them and spoke to them thus. Who gave you a decree to build this house and to finish the structure? Like those prophets over there told us to start again?
Right.
They also asked them, what are the names of the men who are building this building? That's to get them in trouble. Mm-hmm. But here's a key. We're going to see this in Ezra and Nehemiah. But the eye of their God was upon the elders of the Jews. And we're going to see that in beginning in chapter 7 of Ezra. But it's not going to talk about the eye. It's going to talk about the hand of the Lord. It's going to say, like in chapter 7, verse 6, the hand of the Lord as God was upon him. And we will see that over and over. But by the good hand of our God. But the hand of our God was with us. And here it is, the eye of their God was on the elders of the Jews. And as we know, the story progresses. The temple gets built, and all is well. And I just encourage you, if the eye of your God is upon you, the eye of the true God is upon you, just what you set out to do that's in his will be accomplished. Now, it may be delayed, like this letter had it delayed.
There's a lot of delays in here that we're not really told exactly how much time has elapsed, but this has been a very slow process.
Right. But I just encourage you all just to trust the Lord in his time. If the eye of his God, your God is on you, you will do well. But the eye of their God was on the elders of the Jews, and they did not stop them until the report should reach Darius, and then an answer be returned by letter concerning it.
Verse 6, this is a copy of the letter that Tattenai, the governor of the province beyond the river, and Shethar-Bozenai and his associates, the governors who were in the province beyond the river, sent to Darius the king. So they're asking Darius if the Jews are allowed to do this. Verse 7, they sent him a report in which was written as follows. To Darius the king, all peace. Be it known to the king that we went to the province of Judah, to the house of the great God. It is being built with huge stones, and timber is laid in the walls. This work goes on diligently and prospers in their hands. Then we asked those elders and spoke to them thus. Who gave you a decree to build this house and to finish this structure? We also asked them their names for your information, that we might write down the names of their leaders. And this was their reply to us. We are servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are rebuilding the house that was built many years ago when a great king of Israel built and finished. Which a great king of Israel built and finished. But because our fathers had angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylonia, or Babylon, the Chaldean, who destroyed this house and carried away the people to Babylonia. However, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Babylon, Cyrus the king made a decree that this house of God should be rebuilt, and the gold and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple that was in Jerusalem and brought into the temple of Babylon, these Cyrus the king took out of the temple of Babylon, and they were delivered to one whose name was Sheshbazzar, whom he had made governor. And he said to him, "Take these vessels, go and put them in the temple that is in Jerusalem, and let the house of God be rebuilt on its site." Then this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundations of the house of God that is in Jerusalem. And from that time until now, it has been in building, and it is not yet finished. Therefore, if it seems good to the king, let search be made in the royal archives there in Babylon to see whether a decree was issued by Cyrus the king for rebuilding of this house of God in Jerusalem. And let the king send us his pleasure in this matter.
Okay, so the Jews start building again. They resume. And then this Tattenai, the governor, requests of Darius back in Persia to search the royal archives for Cyrus's decree. And that's what we see in chapter 6 after Darius makes the search and inquiry and what comes as a result of that. And this is very good for the Jewish people. Mm-hmm. Chapter 6, verse 1, Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in Babylonia in the house of the archives where the documents were stored. This was before Google searches. They had to send a librarian into all these places and read and try to figure it out. And in Ecbatana, the citadel, that is in the province of Media, a scroll was found on which this was written, a record. In the first year of Cyrus the king issued a decree concerning the house of God at Jerusalem. Let the house be rebuilt, the places where the sacrifices were offered, and let its foundations be retained. Its height shall be 60 cubits, and its breadth 60 cubits, and with 3 layers of great stones, and from 1 layer of timber, let the cost be paid from the royal treasury. So it's interesting here, they're giving a scope of work, just how big it can be, lest there be cost overruns. Mm-hmm. And also let the gold and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took out of the temple that is in Jerusalem, and brought to Babylon, be restored and brought back to the temple that is in Jerusalem, each to its place. Ye shall put them in the house of God.
Verse 6, Now therefore, Tattenai, governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-bozenai, and your associates, the governors, who are in the province beyond the river, keep away. Leave them alone. Let the work of God on this house alone. Let the governor of the Jews and the elders of the Jews rebuild this house of God on its site. So that even right there is just amazing that Darius supported that and said, leave them alone, let them do their work. But then verse 8, Moreover, I make a decree regarding what you shall do for these elders of the Jews for the rebuilding of the house, this house of God. The cost is to be paid to these men in full and without delay from the royal revenue, the tribute of the province from beyond the river. And whatever is needed, bulls, rams, or sheep for burnt offerings to the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, or oil, as the priests at Jerusalem require, let that be given to them day by day without fail. Verse 10, that they may offer pleasing sacrifices to the God of heaven and pray for the life of the king and his sons. I think that's interesting there. I think Darius there is saying that he wants the Jews to make offerings to their God and to pray for him and his sons. Like, I think he thinks it's going to go well for him if the Jews pray to their God on his behalf.
Yeah, and we see government officials, like if someone says to pray, like often, whatever, it's not going to hurt.
I think God uses that.
Sure.
And, verse 11, and I also make a decree that if anyone alters this edict, a beam shall be pulled out of his house, and he shall be impaled on it, and his house shall be made a dunghill.
Okay, and that sounds a lot like
a cross.
Like a cross and crucifixion. He shall be impaled on a beam. And this is the first mention in the Bible about any sort of thing about a crucifixion. Now, this probably doesn't look exactly like a Roman crucifixion.
But I think that was a Persian practice. I think secular historical documents talk about that.
It is.
Verse 12, may the God who has caused his name to dwell there overthrow any king or people who shall put out a hand to alter this. So really he's saying, I want them to be punished, but I also know that God is going to take care of anyone who changes this. He says, so anyone who shall put out a hand to alter this or to destroy this house of God that is in Jerusalem, I, Darius, make a decree. Let it be done with all diligence.
Then, according to the word sent by Darius the king, Tattenai the governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-bozenai and their associates did with all diligence what Darius the king had ordered. And the elders of the Jews built and prospered through the prophesying of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo. They finished their building. And that's your word right there, right? Support and completed.
And completed.
Completed, yep. They finished the building by the decree of God, the God of Israel, and by the decree of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. And this house was finished on the 3rd day of the month of Adar in the 6th year of the reign of Darius the king.
And the people of Israel, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the returned exiles celebrated the dedication of this house of God with joy. They offered at the dedication of this house of God 100 bulls, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and as a sin offering for all Israel, 12 male goats according to the number of the tribes of Israel. And they set the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their divisions for the service of God at Jerusalem, as it is written in the book of Moses.
And on the 14th day of the first month, the returned exiles kept the Passover. This brings you back to the end of 2 Chronicles. Chapter 30, Hezekiah kept his Passover. In chapter 35, Josiah instituted the Passover again. And so here, like a Passover, I like to say, is Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving all combined. And once the temple is set up and they have sacrifices, like this Passover is the supreme holiday for the Jews.
I think it's also like part of revival. You know, when there's revival, they celebrate the Passover.
For the priests and the Levites had purified themselves together. All of them were clean. So they slaughtered the Passover lamb for all the returned exiles, for their fellow priests, and for themselves. It was eaten by the people of Israel who had returned from exile, and also by everyone who had joined them and separated himself from the uncleanness of the peoples of the land to worship the Lord, the God of Israel. And they kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with joy, for the Lord had made them joyful, and had turned the heart of the king of Assyria to them, so that he aided them in the work of the house of God, the God of Israel. And here we see how the eye of their God was upon them, that God was the one who turned the heart of the king of Assyria to them by declaring from Cyrus and also Darius as well, just this decree to build that temple, build that altar, sacrifice, that it pray to your God so it might go well with us. And the temple was built and all was well because God's hand was on them.
Right.
Okay, and then we'll pick up the story in chapter 7 tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.